People who did it with a massive age gap between you. How did that happen? Story 1. In college, I went to a bar that attracted an older crowd to watch a friend's band play there. I was 21 at the time, and most people there were in their late 30s or early 40s. I was wandering around casually talking to people, talked to a 40-something-year-old for a while. To my surprise, she invited me back to her place. Drunk me said yes. She still had it for 40 plus. I stayed over that night. The next morning as I was leaving, I crossed paths with her son in the kitchen as I was walking out. He was about my age. He stood there confused for a second. I saw it on his face the moment he realized what happened. I turned and walked to the front door and he yelled, "Really, bro?" I smirked, shrugged, then opened the door and left. Story 2. She had a crush on me. I thought she was very hot, but holy shit, she was at least a decade older than me. How intimidating. I asked her to join me at a bar for karaoke night. We just talked that night. The next week she invited me over to her place to watch the first GOP, Grand Old Party nomination debate for the then upcoming 2016 election. Somehow romance still bloomed. She hit on me some more, but damn, she's at least a decade older than me. Eventually we kept glancing at each other until she leaned over and kissed me. I kissed back and she crawled in my lap and took her shirt off and he went from there. Almost 3 years later, we're getting married this April. Story 3. I sort of fooled around with a professor once. I'm a male, she's female. It was a practical class that she taught and we had a lot of one-on-one time with her. I was having a lot of problems with a single aspect of my work, but she said it was otherwise some of the top stuff in her class. We got along really well, joking and playful teasing. She was 40 to 45, I was 20. She kept office hours on Fridays from 3 to 5 p.m. I had to talk to her about an assignment that I did really poor on. I went to see her and discussing it and she said, "Okay, let's sit down and rework some parts here." So sitting side by side we worked on it, each doing a piece and leaning over each other. There was a strange moment when we made eye contact and she leaned in. We kissed and started making out pretty passionately. She started feeling me up and I did the same. She put her hand on my D through my jeans and pulled back. She said something like, "Oh no, we can't do this." "Oh God, I'm sorry." I said sorry and she said, No, it's my fault." We just kind of sat there for a while in awkward silence. I broke the silence and said, "Look, I can see how this might be a bad situation for you. I just want you to know that I won't tell anyone, okay? We'll just pretend this didn't happen. I don't want to F over your career." Which I didn't. She was a great professor. She said thanks and I laughed. We didn't work as closely anymore, but she still marked me fairly. We didn't talk about it again. Story 4. She was in her mid-50s, I was in my late 20s. We met through a couple whom we were both separately very close to. So we were continually running into each other socially and every time we did, we had a blast. Then I was badly injured in a construction accident at the same time she lost an eye due to a detached retina that went very wrong. Neither one of us was in a condition where we could recuperate safely alone, but in a sort of the lame leading the blind man our way, we could get by. So we spent a lot of time healing together and really coming to understand each other. She was a great cook. And I lived on 7 to 11 burritos and salad bars. So one day I asked her to show me some basic kitchen moves. We had some wine, cooked, had some more wine, and then we spent 25 years together. And I suppose there was always a little of the thought, what are we doing? And we did try to separate several times. I've never wanted children or cared about a typical family, so I don't feel I gave up anything. I suppose there was some kind of dependence issue in both our parts, but I wonder if dependence or mutual support might be part of what makes great relationships. I can't emphasize this too strongly. We had a wonderful time. Perhaps by some measures we weren't very responsible, but I have no regrets. She was ill for the last few years with Alzheimer's and I did my best to care for her. That was hard, but it made me a better person. And dementia took her away more gently than it does most people. So even that had its good aspects. We all have to age physically, but a few of us get to stay youthful in our outlook and attitudes and in our ability to love. I believe there's a degree of choice in this. She never really let age diminish her. I was a lucky guy. Story 5. Work got laid off from my job, freshly split with my wife and super heartbroken and unsure about my future and my life. Went to the golf course to watch some playoff hockey with my dad and brother. There was this gorgeous sexy that served there, and since basically everyone in my town was out of work, the place was packed. I was super attracted to her, but because she was being hit on by nearly 50 other men, I didn't even bother because I could tell she was done with being hit on at that point. I had talked to her before, and we got along quite well, so we did kind of know each other. Anyways, it turned out to be a great night. Had fun with my family and some friends. The hockey team we were cheering for won their playoff game, and we ended up staying until closing. Almost everyone left, including my dad and brother. I hadn't drank that much, so I was sober, but about 6 people were lingering around with obvious intentions to try to go home with her. I paid my bill and said goodbye when she asked if I'd stay until she closed up to walk her to her car. I told her I'd be happy to. So I helped her clean a few tables while she was cashing out and kicking out the last 6 or laying it on thick, trying to convince her to come home with him. They all eventually left and she asked for a ride home. We got in my truck and she asked if I wanted to hang out a bit. We went back to my house, and for the next couple of months we hooked up as much as physically possible, which was the best couple of months I had in years. We got along, laughed, cuddled, and just enjoyed each other for a few months before we both moved away from town. Story 6. Hooked up with a guy who was 24 years older than me. I'm in my 20s. We worked together and got on together well. It started with friendly lunches that turned into an attraction. I didn't find him physically attractive at first. He was 6 inches shorter than me and kind of pudgy. His personality more than made up for it, and over time it changed his looks in my eyes, and I became physically attracted to him. He appreciated me, genuinely listened to me, and made me feel like the most beautiful woman in the world. He was fun to talk to and always had funny stories. The age difference never bothered me. I could always feel eyes on us when we went out and showed any PDA, public display of affection. It was funny how the men would always be the ones to stare. Women just looked at me like a gold digger. In the bedroom he had a small D, but always made sure I was taken care of with or on his hands. When you have only had young guys on you like a jackrabbit, having someone slow down was a fantastic change. He spoiled me from beginning to end. We eventually stopped seeing each other because we wanted different things in life. He had never been married or had kids, and that is something that I wanted in my life. The split was harder on me, I think, but I moved on and have the life I've always wanted. I hope he's the same. Story 7. I play for the rugby club in Dallas, and we had just our casino night fundraisers, so we were all dressed in nines. I happened to be in a Highland dress, kilt, plaid, whole 9 yards, and looking fly as hell. Well, the night was over, and the lads and I decided to hit a dive bar close to the venue. Here's where it gets interesting. I walk in and this girl yells, "Hey Vincent." What the F? I'm a bit taken aback as my name isn't Vincent. Po girl is mortified and starts backpedaling as she just shouted at a 6'2" rucker in a kilt. I was far more amused than anything. I smirk and I just tell her, "Darling, you're pretty enough. You can accost me anytime." She grins, got me in. Then it got weird. One of the players on the women's team bounces over. A 52-year-old rugby player who also does Highlands games. Beautiful. Form-built body, strong and graceful in all the best ways. She's just tipsy enough to be mouthy. And saunters between us as just bouts out, "Hey, if you two have *** tonight, can I watch?" I cringe so hard that I think I popped a disc in my back. Leica kinda looks me up and down, looks at Andrea and just smirks, "Yeah, sure, let's do this." I'm not really sure what's happening, so I let Leica tap out. Then literally threw her over my shoulder. She loved it, to a chorus of shouting and laughing jacks and rugby players. My team saw the whole thing. We darted out of the bar to her place. Luckily, I was at that magical place where I could still function but not finish. About 7 hours later, we were all exhausted, extremely satisfied and reveling in the mix of triumph and shame. It was a good night. Story 8. My best friend's mom in high school was going through a divorce, an hour since I was in 3rd grade. One night I go over there to hang with a friend and she answers the door all disheveled looking. Seems she'd been crying. "Friend's not home. Are you okay, Miss Harley?" "Yeah." I let myself in and we talked and drank some wine. She was all sad, with no self-confidence. "I'm never going to find another man, Jack." I told her she was crazy. "You're beautiful. Hardworking, loving, amazing mom. You'll get scooped up real quick." She laughs, I say I'm serious. She has nothing to worry about. Mr. Harley is just itty. Will never be happy with anyone if he couldn't see what he had before him. Cue silence and flirty looks. We woke up. Next morning she thanked me for everything and I laughed. She got married like 3 years later and has seemed super happy ever since.